so you will need to do that walk twice. If you're not feeling up to it, not to worry, there is a nice shady area at the top of this first gorge that we can sit beneath, and we'll pick you up on our way back to the National Park. This is the Katherine River we're travelling up today. It's a rain-fed river, has a catchment area of about 9,500 square kilometres, and it flows down from there in a situ. Stuart's expedition was funded by a wealthy Adelaide businessman named James Chambers. And out of appreciation for this, he made a lot of the landmarks in housing, education and employment. If you take a look over to the front left of us, you'll see a large aluminium Australia. We've got the salt water, or the estuarine crocodile, which Jarman people call ginga. That's what that track's for. And we've also got the freshwater, or the Johnston River crocodile, which is known as goima in the Jarman language. Now guys, almost every single plant you can see around you here today had some kind of traditional use to the Jarman. And then you see we're heading towards a couple of large plants growing just up off the water's edge with bright green oval-shaped leaves. This is your freshwater mangrove, or Gargantuana acutangula. The Jarman call this one manuel, but what manuel translates to in English is fish poison. I would call that one down. And then we can also strip the leaves of those fan palms. They'll be the finer string once they dry them out, and use that string to weave things like dilly bags, armbands and headbands. It's also a pretty good source of bush tucker balance, so now's a really good time to make use of the toilet facilities if you need to, and also fill up your water bottles before we make our way through to the second gorge. As you're walking through to the second gorge, you can like your camera and start making an excavation. This particular gallery, you're going to have the opportunity to see this. So without superficial paintings, they get up on the rock instead. Now I'm going to need to send you all through in front of me today, and I'll meet you on the other side of the pool.
They say those paintings are over 20,000 years old. Made up from different oak trees, animal blood, some sort of saturated fats, and it actually imprints the pores of the rock the same as a tattoo. So our tour guide tells us. Yeah, right. They say the freshwater crocs, they go up on the sand and lay anywhere from 5 to 20 eggs. If the eggs remain at a temperature from 28 to 32, they'll be all females. If they're up around 34, 35 degrees, they'll be males. If they're somewhere in between, they get both. It takes around 64 days for the males to hatch, and over 100 days for the females. And if mum is a bit hungry, she eats all the eggs and the young and everything. Otherwise she'll chew the eggs and help them get into the water, and life begins. They also say the freshwater croc, no threat to man. If they do bite you, it's the bacteria on their teeth that can make you sick, even lose a limb. But they don't tear the flesh or drown you or eat you like the saltwater crocodile.
This second gorge is this really large cliff face we're passing on our right. This is called Jeddah's Rock. So this rock featured in a film called Jeddah that was made back in 1955 by a filmmaker called Charles Chauvel, and it was pretty important in Australian film history for a couple of reasons. It was the first full-length Australian film to be made in colour, but more importantly it was the first Australian film to star. So it's the big cliff face out here in the gorge. One of them filmed in this exact spot on the river actually. That one was made in 2006. It starred John Jarratt and a young Sam Worthington, and it was called Rogue. Have any of you seen that one, Rogue? Yeah, it's probably a good thing that most of you haven't. It was about an 8-metre saltwater crocodile terrorising a boatload of tourists. Same filmmaker who did Wolf Creek, so you can probably imagine how the story went down. It did have a pretty happy ending though. The female tour guide called My Top End Wedding. Now I'm going to have a quick chat to you here about all this rock you can see around you and how it was formed 20 million years ago. There was a massive upheaval in the earth which pushed that rock up and split it apart. A series of those fractures that have opened up a lot more with the erosion from the water. And you will notice as we Now just to the right of this subgorge on our right, you'll see some smooth, lighter the sand on these beaches comes from the rock around us back in its original form. Most photographed section of the gorge. It's called the Katherine Canyon. If you're on the right hand side to get a clear shot as well. So if you're on the left of the vision in the 1990s, it featured in a promotional advertisement made with Hey Hey It's Saturday's Daryl Summers. He was floating up here on a blow-up mattress, and the ad had the slogan, "You never know, you never go." This subgorge out in front of us here is because during the wet season, a whole bunch of rocks and water come rushing down through the canvas direction, forming a whirlpool. All of those rocks concentrate at the bottom of that whirlpool and they act like a drill, made in its own image. You're then made to rest in this really deep pool in the corner here. So Jawan people want to slaw, I mean L-O-R-E rather than L-A-W, more of a traditional diet. You've got a great example of that coming up in line with the front of the boat over to our right here now. We call this spot Raymond on top of it, and the rock is actually filtering it. So if you can manage to get a cupful of those droplets, that'll be some of the cleanest water you'd ever drink. It takes several months to get all the way from the top to It almost died off completely. Largest on record though was back in 1998, and I've got to point out a flood marker for that one and lower end of the cliff. In an acre and a half of water, and that's how high the river level got in the 98 flood. So we actually had enough water coming through the gorge to fill up an empty Sydney harbour every 9 hours. We put the main street of Katherine under around 3 metres of water, and they even had to step above the natural rock bars. We drive all the boats downstream with the current, take them off the water completely for a service. I'm just going to pull up into this cave coming up on our left. This is called Swallow's Cave, and it gets its name because of the shape of a bottle to raise their young. And by the time the water level rises again in the following months, building more, they might have taken off. They'll come back. So you see the rock shelf over to the right-hand side of this cave. In the wet season, you get a lot of mud and sandy sediments that get deposited onto that rock shelf. So the way these fairy martins build their nest is by landing on the rock shelf over to the right. You can see a few flying down there now. They'll pick up some of that mud in their beak, nip down to the river, grab a little bit of river water, mix it all together with their saliva, and then they'll build a layer on their nest. They'll wait for that layer to dry and come back and do the same thing all over again. If you're into your caves, we do actually run tours down at Kutta Caves. Now, as we're pulling out of Swallow's Cave, you've got a really nice photo opportunity on your left, back down into the Katherine Canyon, and also on your right, a little bit of a sneak peek up into the third gorge. Feel free to stand again if you'd like to. And over to the front right of us here now. females have got a lot lighter beige coloured chest. So this darter bird will duck dive for its dinner. And the reason why it's got its wings spread like that is because when it comes out of the water, it's completely waterlogged. So picture that lookout sitting on the tip of the snout of a really large crocodile's head. This one's made of rock, facing downstream towards the sky, and there's even a tooth line in the sedimentary layer of the rock to help you out there. If you're in the back right-hand side of the boat and you can't see that lookout up on top of the cliff, you'll have to lean down or come over to the left to be able to spot that rock formation. This looks like a giant crocodile's head and the lookout sitting on the back. So you've got a couple of logs down the front here, about 2 o'clock from the front of the boat, and then you've got some spindly ones behind it, and there's a freshwater crocodile sitting on the largest log behind the spindly ones. You might be able to recognise him from the stripes on his tail, the spikes of his tail and the spots on it. Feel free to move around the boat to get a better view of it. For the males, and life expectancy, we're looking at between 60 to 70 years of age. Because it's too final. What they like to say instead is bore. And bore means see you later, or until we meet again. This morning, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed your time here on the river, and bore. One last bump as we land on the jetty here. Come on, those eyes and all those eyes.
Margaret's going to be happy with that. We just done the Katherine Gorge in one of the boats. It was brilliant, and we didn't go as far as the waterfall. It's another tour to get to the waterfall, so I want to show Margaret the waterfall, so I've just booked us an hour in the chopper.